All right, we're gonna try to keep this session or this workshop a little bit short for the CSS, as it's just an extender off of our second session, and then we're going to be coming around just helping you guys polish out your portfolios. And if you're watching this later, the recording, if you have any questions, you can just contact me or Hannah, and we'll be able to help you. But we're just going to go into some rules and generalization just of CSS and some major things that you're going to be looking at when you're looking at and working on your portfolio.
So we're going to go over like just an introduction to CSS, kind of like what that looks like, how to add images, because I know that like some of you guys were asking about that just for HTML and stuff, CSS positioning, and then we're going to also dive into like your portfolio too, so don't worry about that. And then we'll just do questions and go over everybody's things.
So this is the same one that we kind of touched on a little bit in last session. So as you can see, we have the body class here, or body tag, and within those brackets, we have the background color light blue. So if you have a website or portfolio and it's light blue, you can just change this color. I usually use the hex code. So if you ever see where it looks like the pound sign or hashtag, and then it'll have numbers or letters following after it. I usually just Google red in hexadecimal code, and it'll have a red, and you can also use a color picker just to yeah, she'll come around and show you guys specifically.
So here you can see your, it says hex code, sorry, it's reading my stuff. So here you can have your color, and then you have the pound symbol, and then a lot of them you can just go online and be hex code for blue, magenta, whatever, and then you can pick a very specific color and use the hex code. And then you can also do RGB colors. So that's same thing. You can also go online and easily generate that.
Yeah, and you would just replace where it says light blue with that hex or the RGB code there. And it's really simple. When you save it and refresh your website, it should take effect. And then here we get into the styles with the header. So header 1, so you can change the color of it. So any header 1 references that you have in your HTML will all be white now, and the text line will be center, meaning that'll be in the center of. So if you put it in a div, which I believe we get into this in a little bit.
Yeah, we can.
So it'll essentially, when you have obviously the text line center, it'll be in the middle of the page or in the middle of the I would say I want to say box, but container. And we'll show you guys when we get and look into your specific CSS files. We'll kind of explain that further and show you exactly what it means in the center and the alignment of things. And we also get into some sizing later on in the slides. Same with the paragraph tag here. So, and in the font family, code there is just the font that you're going to be using. So Verdana, which at the top of your HTML, I believe we stated this in the last session, you'll have these links, link references, and you'll see that you may have them in your portfolios now. It'll essentially link to the fonts that you're going to be using. Online, Google has a lot of fonts that you can use. I'm trying to think of the top of my head how it looks like. But at the top of the page, it'll be link rel sheet or something, not sheet, link reference, and it'll have fonts. Trying to think off the top of my head exactly what it looks like, but you'll when you see it in the HTML file, you'll know what that means. So if you are wanting to change the font of your portfolios, we can also do that as well and help you guys with that and get more in depth with that. Same with font size. That's just, the larger the number is, the bigger the font's going to be. The smaller the font's going to be.
In a lot of instances, you can also add on to your element basically. So if you have that P element and you don't want every single paragraph tag to be 20 pixels font size, you can I guess you can name it P body or P title,
dot, yeah, yeah.
whatever. Yeah, dot.
So that's when we
whatever.
get into like the classes for it for CSS. So when you put a div, so if you were to structure or put the paragraph like P class equals whatever you name the
Yeah.
class, then anything within those brackets in your HTML will be that style. And again, I'll show you guys that because it's a lot easier to explain when I'm looking at the
We
code.
can show your portfolio too, because like
Yeah.
there was a lot of that like stuff in there that we could probably go over also.
Mhm.
And so here, like, we're just showing you how to add images. It
Probably
might
gonna
be
be
kind of
harder
hard
to
to see.
see.
Yeah, sorry.
Smell the projector working right now.
But basically, like, it goes into depth of like basically how you can assign your height and your width certain parameters, so it fits like to your website appropriately. And then SRC, like, isn't that
The
just
source.
Yeah,
I would say.
you know exactly how to.
Yeah, so that's just where the link of or where the image is being hosted at. So sometimes you can either have it on directly from the direct image link from a website. So let's say you go and you see an article and you right click on it and you hit copy image address and you can put that in the source and it'll pull the image from that article. But let's say that website goes down and you're pulling it from that address, then your image will go down as well because it has nothing to pull from. But best practice usually is you'll host the images on your own server or website. As you can see there, and that image source tag, actually both of them are the same. You see how it says images / I guess quokka.jpg. So what's that saying is that's the path file in your server, right? So images is the folder, and I think we went over this a little bit in the HTML last session. So a lot of your portfolios may have a image or assets folder, and in those images folder you'll have the actual image, so the quokka.jpg. So basically what you're saying is you're just telling to grab the image from images / quokka, so from the folder images. So it's just this source, and if you guys are still confused on that, again, when we come around, I can show you exactly where the images are hosted and how it's pulling. But essentially, that source is just saying where we're getting it from.
And then that where it says alt, it's just like alternate text. So if I guess that we kind of went over that last time also. But like if somebody has like a like a reader,
Yeah,
like it's just like for accessibility purposes.
so if someone's blind and they can't see the web page, then they have a voice reader, it'll be able to describe what the image is. So it's also best practice to use that too, just to be,
or even if like your web page isn't loading the image, like that's an issue, like a lot of like where there's like bandwidth problems, it won't load the photo, but you can at least see what it is. So that's good practice.
And these slides also, because you guys can also go back to these on the website because we post them. If you forget something like from today and you just can't remember a certain definition, we found these are great texts that Hannah uses, and they explain in pretty good detail, but also in simple terms of what each string of code or what each element does.
Do you feel comfortable going over the
Yeah. Positioning. So now it's getting a little bit, I wouldn't say advanced, but kind of, because we're just kind of, editing our templates. We're not changing positions too much, but there could be some content that you want to change on the page. And we're going to work with you guys to do that. Because I will try to explain it the best I can, but we have the definitions here. And then also if you want to see at that result at the bottom, from the definition here, it moves an element in relation to where it would have been in normal flow. So do we have normal flow actually here? Okay,
no,
so let's go over real quick. So normal flow is the beginning one, I would say, in positioning. And normal flow is just kind of what's like the default position,
so
I would
just
say.
like starts
So-
left and like.
So with CSS, it's just in one format. So like let's say you have 3 paragraphs, one will be on top of one will be on top of another one, and then on top of another one. It won't go from left to right. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like vertical, up, down. So that's the normal flow for it. Now for relative, so it's saying here that it moves an element in relation to where it would have been in normal flow. So if normal flow is at, let's say, 0 or 50, and I'm trying to think
Oh,
of
and
it
then it's
pixel
just-
wise. Yeah, so you can, you see the example there in CSS. So position relative, the top is 10%, 10 pixels, that PX is pixels, and the left is 100 pixels. So
it's just
they're
adding
doing,
that onto the relevant.
yeah, so because I'm a visual learner and oh, I hit the keyboard. So that's why I wanted to, it's easier to explain. So you see the result there, the image. So we can see that the evolution of the bicycle is the header 1. In our HTML, it says H1 evolution of the bicycle. In our CSS, it says position relative. The top is 10 pixels and the left is 100 pixels. So in our header there, or in our paragraph there, between the evolution of the bicycle and when we start getting into the paragraph, tags there, you see how there's the gap between the title and the paragraphs. So that's about 10 pixels. So that's top because it's the top of the text. And then when we see the left where it's 100 pixels, I believe that's where it's changing. You see how that one paragraph in the middle is like shifted all the way to the right there. So it's adding 100 pixels to the left. I know it's hard to like describe there in a sense. So if it was to the right, it would be going the other way. But it's adding that 100 pixels on the screen of blank space there. That's why it's moving that second paragraph in, because that's where that second paragraph is using that P dot example. And that's also a good thing when we're getting into classes. So that P dot example is the name of that paragraph class. So as you can see, the first paragraph and the third paragraph, we're just using a normal paragraph tag. Then in the second paragraph in the middle there, that's where it uses that class example, and it's being defined as top 10% or 10 px pixels, and then left 100 pixels. So it's moving relatively inside the container. I know it's very confusing in a sense, but once we go around and help you guys, I feel like you learn more with like hands-on. That's how I learn with things. I don't like necessarily reading as much because sometimes it's harder to see, but that's why the image is easier to decipher what it's actually doing.
So absolute, let's see, what would that, because that just flows with it all.
Yeah, so absolute. So it looks like it's not affecting the other elements. So as you can see, the evolution of the bicycle in the top there at HTML, it's within the body. And so with normal flow, the header H1 would be on top of those paragraphs. Like I said, it goes vertical. So, and then we have the paragraph in 1817, Baron, blah, 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 normally would be directly below it in normal flow. With absolute now, it's not going to be affecting the, since we put it in position absolute, yeah, it's not affecting that other text there. So it's not going to be affecting this paragraph text. It actually started its own container on the right. As you can see that the top is at 0 pixels and it went to the left all the way 500. So if you're thinking I wish I had something like to draw on. So
I have like a notebook.
Yeah. Because what it's doing here is we see header 1 position, right? We have position absolute. So it's kind of getting out of that. It's still in that container, but it's very, I would say, fluid in the container. So let me draw a box here. I know you can't see this on the recording. Sorry about that, but
It'd be nice if you had like a bullet point list, and you don't want to have like one huge list, maybe like have half on one side, half on the other.
Yeah. So we have our paragraphs here, our paragraph text, as you see, like in the image. So normally in normal flow, let's just say this is our header, and bad handwriting, I'm writing like this, but this would be our header, right? So in normal flow, it would be going straight down, and this is our paragraph, and there we right here. But now since we put on this a absolute position, we've now enabled it to be able to be moved over to here without affecting this text, because we don't want this text to move over as well. And that's what we can see inside our inside that image in that example. So when we say 500 pixels, what we're saying is move this over or put blank space here, or like, yeah, so it's essentially saying like move it over 500 pixels to the right over here. So let's say you had, I'll just flip this over. So let's say you had the opposite. So you had your web page here, and you had the text here, paragraph, header, okay? And then we said position absolute, and we said right 500, or let's say we did right 300 pixels, right? So we want to do right 300 pixels. It'll move this header, let's say it's like in the center. So then now the header is over here. So it's just kind of like with a lot of these positions, I like to just tinker around with it and see where it's moving across the screen. And that's, you can see how you want to get exactly how you want it to look. But just know that it's moving over 300 pixels, that header. And then that's what it also, that's why in the paragraph tag there on this slide, you can see that it just has the width of 450 pixels. And that's the width there is stretching that text out, or like making that text box 450 pixels on the screen, if you get what I'm saying. So like you see how it's let's see, I'm trying to see if, okay. So for example, you see these image description texts, or sorry, these definitions for all of these, right? You see how, let's say they're 30 pixels long, right? So they're like about that big. And now we get over to here, and this width of this paragraph is 450 pixels. Well, look how much longer we can fit in, how many more characters we can fit in. So that width is saying how many characters on screen for that paragraph we should fit in. So it'll cut off at 450 and then go to the next line. So if we make that width 100 pixels, it'll only be maybe that big, around that same size of the definitions. So that's kind of like, again, a lot of it is playing around with it and seeing how it's changed. And that's like the best way to learn. But now you kind of have like an idea of like each of what of those do. And again, the top where it says 0 pixels, we have the top of our website. So this is the top of our website. And let's say we put 10 pixels, it'll say we have a title here and it's at 10 pixels. It'll be a little bit down from the top of the website. If we change this to 0 pixels, this title will move up because it'll be closer to the top of the website because it's a lesser value. So more value, 100 pixels, then the title will move farther down. You know what I'm saying? So like 0 is at the top.
So it's sort of like adding like a margin.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, there's margins and padding in this, and that's how padding works as well too. But padding's more like, because these are getting the top tag, it's like very let me explain actually on paper's part. So we're gonna get into, let's go to,
I
sorry,
think I hid that one.
oh, see.
I didn't know if you wanted to.
Oh, okay. So
I can, do you want me to show that?
well, I was gonna start getting into a little bit of the divs real quick and
Okay.
padding with that. So like, you showing them something?
No, it just went out for some reason.
Okay.
Do you want me to pull up like a?
Yeah, if you want to pull up something, but essentially, so the div is containing code inside of it. I keep saying container, but it is like a container. Like
Oh,
imagine
yeah, okay.
having a Tupperware container, right? And then you have things inside of it, and they're all red because you marked that container red, right? So everything inside it's going to be red. Same if you had another container that's blue, everything inside it's blue. Now, if you were to change the style of one of the containers, it would change everything in that container. Let's say you change the blue one to red. Now all the items inside that container are going to be red. So, and you're changing that style, and that's what you define in the CSS file. So that's what, okay, we'll be in a few minutes. Yeah, I didn't realize we were going that fast, or time was going that fast. So in the div, it categorizes or contains everything within that div, and you can define the style for it. So padding is essentially like the position, and it's of like a whole div, and then using that top is only specific to that paragraph within the div. I know it's like,
So like a lot of people will make like multiple containers. So like if I had one div, like I had one big rectangle and that was like my whole like body area. Like I just had like an outlining like box, and then I wanted like another colored box, like a gray over that like teal box. You can put a container in that, and then you'd use the padding so it's not like the same exact size. Like it would kind of like flow into it, so it's not just like you're not just seeing the one color, you're kind of seeing both, and then you have that little buffer area, if that makes sense.
So it's kind of like padding is like changing the different sizes within containers. And then when you're talking about like it is similar to how that top is like 0% or 0 pixels, but that's specific only for that paragraph within it. I know it's really hard to explain. It's hard to explain like picturing it, but I think we're going to use the rest of this time. Well, real quick, let's just go over the last few things we have slides here, because I want to use the rest of the time we have to help to look at their portfolios and help with anything. So you guys see fixed position. So essentially fixed position is kind of self-explanatory with it. It just stays, how do you want to explain it? Like it
just stays the same.
It stays on the page there. As you can see how the person's scrolling down and the evolution of the bicycle is in a fixed position. It's staying at the top of that page that whole time. Even if they're scrolling, it's not flowing with the normal flow. It's not flowing with the other content on the page. It's going to stay there. It's like a nav bar. Some sites you'll see will have a fixed nav bar. So as you're scrolling down, the nav bar is just going to stay at the top. You know what I'm saying? So that's essentially what fixed position does. And here's normal flow at the end here. Well, we have static. So static or normal flow is, like I said, each block level for the next one. So that's how I feel like of it, like kind of like vertical. Each element is just going to sit on top of each other. So we put the H1 first. That's going to sit on top of the paragraph there in the HTML text, and so on and so forth. So they're all just going to sit on top of each other. They're not moving. They're just static in one flow. Okay. So questions with any of those? So we can just get right into your guys'.
Those probably aren't as important as like your other stuff, because you probably aren't going to be moving around a lot, because like you're probably going to keep like the format of it already.
Yeah, and if it's a site that you're editing, like we're kind of editing these, a site that's already technically fully made, sometimes changing positioning is a little tricky because it could break other things. So mainly from scratch is a lot of the positioning, but also it could work for editing it. We can figure something out if you're wanting to move something. But we're going to stop the recording here. I know it was a little short one because it's just a continuation of the second session and a little bit into CSS. Again, if you're watching the recording, just feel free to email me or Hannah, and we'll be able to help you or set up a Zoom to help you with your portfolio.